Welcome back, everybody, to the Champions Chess Tour. As always, it has been nearly a month since the last edition, this massive online event, this one called the Goldmoney, one word, Asian Rapid. That is because the company sponsoring it is named Goldmoney. They're involved in some sort of precious metals. I don't know if they're a commodity trading firm or if they literally have physical precious metals. And it's called Asian Rapid because a lot of Indian players, a lot of Chinese players are playing, as well as a lot of Russian players. So the tournament begins at 7 a.m. Eastern, so I don't do live commentary, but you all know that who watches that stuff anyway? You all come to watch the Gotham recaps, and today I will show you 5 of my favorite games in the preliminary stage, and then we will look at the standings. Friendly reminder, 3 days of prelims, 16 players, and then the top 8 move on to play in the playoffs. So, first game of the day, Alireza Firouzja, Magnus Carlsen, timestamps on the video player. We begin. We have e4, e5. We have a Vienna, but Alireza, unfamiliar with the teachings of Gotham, does not go for a Vienna gambit. I really hope he will. He plays bishop c4, bishop c5. And now we have d3, okay? D3, and the idea is to just play pawn to f4. This is very standard stuff. This is, kind of normal Vienna play. All of that happens. Knight f3, a6. That's because whatever you play to g4 to try to get to f2, if you move the knight, doesn't work. If you play bishop g4, knight d4, that's not considered very good. a6 is a move to get the black bishop back to a7. And here it's very common for white to actually play f5. But Alireza chooses not to. He plays a waiting move with bishop b3, and already the players are pretty out of book. Alireza takes, and plays bishop e3. Now, Magnus, of course, will play something to d4, and he does, because of this pin. This pin is very annoying, and if Alireza were to take, then Magnus would play like this, and just very calmly have a dark-squared bishop. Instead of that, we have queen f2, loading up the cannons on this knight, and threatening to take on e5. Because if you took on e5 last move, you would hang a queen 2 different ways, which is a double Botez gambit, or a Botez gambit squared. Queen f2 takes, and now this knight just dominates the center. By trading a light squared bishop for a knight, black has lost control of light squares, but gained control of dark squares, because 2 of these pieces can fight for the dark squares along with this bishop, whereas these are the only 2 pieces in white's territory that can fight for the dark squares. So Magnus might like g5, knight h5, knight f4, queen d6, queen f6, etc. c6, always a good move to control this knight, maybe b5, a lot of ideas. Oh wow, look at that. Levi Rosman just said this move. Long castles. Magnus plays knight f4, very common. If you take this, I will not take back. I will take the bishop with check and then pick up your queen. You've hung your queen 3 times in 13 moves. Very impressive, but not anything that I wouldn't expect any different from my subscribers. Knight takes b3. We have bishop c5, comes back, takes, and queen d6. So basically this position, and now Alireza plays d4. There is an inherent imbalance in this position, because even though both sides have 2 rooks and a knight, there is a massive shift of where the pawns are going. Also, it's not clear which way black is going to castle. The knights are kind of offside. Not offside, but rather offsetting each other. And yeah, I mean, the pawn structure is totally different on both sides. So d4. Trying to break through. Obviously, this capture is awful for black, who just leaves himself with a terrible weakness. Magnus Carlsen in chess instead chooses long castles, and Alireza begins loading up the cannons on the d-file like this. We have rook f8, we have d5 kicking the knight goes back to g5, and now rook d3, so this knight cannot come forward, and is being threatened to get booted completely. So instead, the knight doesn't let the pawn move at all. Rook c1, f5, c4. And this is when I tuned into the game. I had woken up, this is like 7:30 in the morning, 7:40 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, well, I mean, this looks like Magnus is making progress, kind of breaking stuff apart over here, and Alireza will try to play c5 to try to attack the king with his 2 rooks and knight. And actually, my early prediction was that Alireza would win this game, because they would get low on time, he would create some havoc near the king, and even though for the cost of a pawn, the computer might find the best defense, Magnus would not be able to defend the position. That was just my hypothesis when I woke up, then I promptly went about my day. Knight c3, rook takes h2, c5, knight to f4 attacks the rook has to move. But Alireza is just on the verge of losing a second pawn. His idea is that he would do this, and he would win this pawn back, and then he would continue his attack. So Magnus actually doesn't take, and Alireza just keeps pushing forward. Still, Magnus should play a move like rook c8, which is what he does. He wants to get taken. He does not want to make a trade that opens up his opponent's pieces. Okay, keep that in mind. And as you get better at chess, trades change the way some of the other pieces see the board, right? So, knight a4. Alireza really wants his pawn taken, and now he plays knight b6, rook c7, knight d7. Now, here the players could repeat moves. They could. If this were to happen, I'm not sure what Alireza's idea was. cb7, king b7 doesn't do anything. And if you go rook g1 to try to go here, I mean, I just played g5, h5, g4. Like, I don't exactly know how you're going to break through. But that didn't happen. Magnus actually played king a7, rook c4, and h5. And Alireza played rook g1 and g6. So now you're not going to break through those pawns. a4. Alireza is about to attack Magnus Carlsen with literally every bone in his body. Every single piece that he has is involved in this attack. Every single one. He is ready with b5 and b6. And Magnus Carlsen did not really believe in this attack. He just created a little fortress. Except for the fact that there is no fortress at all, folks. Every single fortress may have a weak point. Well, Levy, then it's not a fortress. Semantics. I don't correct you. Okay, knight takes e5. And anytime you have really far advanced pawns like this that are glued together, the slightest wrinkle in your opponent's armor, I don't even think that's a saying, allows the breakthrough. And if you take the knight d6 and black is lost, like black just gets overrun. You have to play the right pawn though. You have to create the tempo move. If you go here, then I go rook d2 and you will never promote. So that would win the game. So instead Magnus goes to h3. So will Alireza be able to come back in time to prevent Magnus's h-pawn and push through? He plays rook h1. Knight takes d5 by Magnus. Knight takes g6 because he doesn't want to actually lose his knight anymore. And he's just maintaining this pawn. Now, if Alireza can successfully get rid of this rook, he will win the game. Oh wow, he got rid of the rook. How did that happen? Well, he took and he brought the knight back with tempo. So Magnus in this position should have played h2, and after knight f2, knight f4 with that same idea, rook f2. And if knight e6, rook f1 check. And actually, computer still tries to defend this position after takes, and rook h3. And the pawn cannot become a queen, and I just bit my tongue, and that really hurt. And I'm going to keep talking even though I'm in immense pain right now. Welcome to Gotham Chess Recaps. Instead of that, the knight got one, and even though both guys got a rook, sorry, not the knight, the rook got one, it's just over because the c-pawn is promoting. And actually, my prediction was true. Alireza defeats Magnus Carlsen the first round of the Goldmoney Rapid. There you go. By the way, I cut Goldmoney Asian Rapid out of the title. It's because it didn't fit. I hope I'm not going to get, like, canceled for that. I don't know. It's 2021. You get canceled for a lot of stuff nowadays, but I just realized I probably should disclaimer. Anyway, second game of the day. This was a very, very fun game. This is the only person who's going to be in multiple games today in this video, I think. Sometimes you guys catch me. I say that, and then you're like, ah, ha, ha, he said something, but it wasn't right. I'm a YouTuber, okay? I gotta be like 95% correct, unlike politicians who lie like half the time. Knight f3, d5. Now, at this point, you have a lot of ways, and by the way, Adhiban Bhaskaran is one of the Indian grandmasters who's participating in this event, who doesn't always participate in this event, and Liren, for the first time ever, doesn't have to play at 3 in the morning. He constantly plays these events at 2 and 3 a.m. It's ridiculous. c4, d4, and b4. This is one of the very aggressive, strange mainline variations in this kind of ready when black tries to plant this pawn in the center and support it and take away white's central space. So what white does is try to build around this. And by the way, you'll notice c5 is a really interesting move. It's not a free pawn because it allows knight c6. Now this knight cannot be booted and black will play e5. And like, look at how disastrous this position can become. Like, black is already just better, just clearly better from the opening. Like, they're still playing the position, but black just has all the space. So rather than that, we have e3 and tension, and he wants him to take. Now it would be a Banco Gambit reversed, which is kind of interesting. If that means nothing to you, don't worry. And now it can't even be a Banco Gambit because we have b5. Knight d7, takes, and Liren blunders a pawn on move 7, just kidding. He plays knight c5, and the queen is attacking the knight. Bishop b2 and e5, and this is Liren's point. He's like, look, Adhiban, you can take one of my pawns. You now have 7 and I have 6, but I have a lot more development. Also, I have created a blockade of your pawns. They are not going anywhere, and I have more center control. And he has all of that. And it's actually funny, even though for a moment he can win a second pawn, that would result in knight d3, takes, and good luck ever removing this bishop. This bishop is like a tapeworm, and you have no access to surgery. It's not going to be very pleasant, okay? No good. So, knight c5, takes, and bishop e2. And instead of taking the pawn, he decides to go for castles. And he does go for castles. Now, of course, Liren is a principled super grandmaster. He has gone through all the necessary training to become a very strong chess player and to adhere to basic principles, such as when you have finished your development, but you have not yet castled and you have the option to go either way, you don't go either of those ways, and instead you play h5. Only in rapid, and that's why we love it. h5 is not the engine's top choice. The engine's top choice is to play rook to d8 or short castle, but what the hell is that? h5. Let's go h4, h3. Our king is completely safe. We dominate the center with all of our pieces, just hanging out, you know. How are you gonna punish me? Well, Adhiban decides to play d4. Now, that just straight up loses a pawn, but it also blocks black's light-squared bishop and allows you to trade a few pieces. And actually, it's not the world's worst idea. People have had significantly worse ideas, like not getting vaccinated. Knight to g4. Queen h2 is a checkmate threat. Okay, wait, trigger warning. YouTube is a big audience. Some folks are going to get very mad by what I just said. And to those people, I just want to say that Adhiban played g3 to prevent queen h2 mate, of course. Takes, and knight e5, queen f5. Now, actually, here, optically, I kind of like white's position because white is going to play knight d2, knight e4. And if you can get rid of some of this center control and slowly bring your rooks, you're going to be very happy, actually. You can get rid of all of this and be super happy. So black needs to be focused, ready, playing aggressive, g6, let's make that queen move. The queen goes away, now castles. And now white's knight e4 is now no longer possible because black is going to be creating quick threats on the queen. So we have rook e1 here, and now the most important move, f4, what's worth as much as a knight, or if not more, f5. f5, queen, knight, there you go. So we have takes, the queen is hanging, takes, the queen is gone, takes, the queen is gone, d3 discovered check, king g2, and e3, what is going on? One dude doesn't have a knight, but has connected passed pawns on the third rank of the enemy's territory, which is worth, I don't even know how much that's worth. That's called relative value. That's what I call relative value. I'm not some sort of, you know, Nobel laureate or whatever. I didn't invent the term, but it's relative value. It's as the game progresses, not every piece is worth what it's worth at the starting rank. Those two pawns combined, you know, solo, they're worth 1. Together, they're worth like 7 points. All right? It's crazy. So knight to b3 attacks the bishop. The bishop moves. By the way, it's very well likely that the best move was something like this. And just giving up the knight. And just going into an endgame where you just end up trading. But Adhiban must have thought there was a way for him to consolidate by sacrificing his rook. And he got to this position. And he has connected passed pawns himself. Now, if Adhiban gets a couple of moves to play bishop a3 and c6 to make sure this is protected, he will get himself connected passed pawns on the 6th rank. When have you ever seen that? Only in Rapid, right? That's why we love this stuff.
In Classical, you get Berlin draw 20 moves. We don't want to lose rating because we won't get invited to tournaments.
Yeah, but not in Rapid, because this is, you know, this is awesome. So, rook b1 is actually a mistake. The best move was to take, and play this. But this is very hard to play because black is just... Rook e2 is a terrible move. Rook e2, king f3, rook h2, and you play like here and c6, or bishop a3. Is there a big difference, bishop e5? Ah, the king. Oh, the king is going to become the weapon. Yeah, bishop a3. Stockfish leads the way, huh? So rook e2 is a terrible move, but b6 is a good move by black. And now black is just in time. Now you can still play this, but now your bishop becomes a target, and this is just no good. So he plays rook b1, but that allows e2, and now you have to lose your rook. Now at this point, they're obviously low on time. Knight c4, and he's just in time. Liren is just in time with the double attack on everything, and you're just not going to get through enough. Knight a5, rook b2, knight takes b7. You still have to make the right move. He plays rook b8. For example, if he plays rook d7, then he just loses. So we sometimes take for granted what one square difference does. Rook b8, he pushes, but now bam. If this, you don't take like this, because then you allow a queen. You take like this. And it's actually funny, you are one tempo away. So, very wild and exciting game, but won by Liren after rook 5 takes b7, because that would be rook 8 takes b7, and, whew, that was very fun. That was a very fun game. Now we go to game number 3. This is a game between Anish, Giri, Wesley So. I'm going to tell you one thing, folks. I'm not going to spoil the result of this game, but I am going to tell you that this game features one of the most beautiful and savage geometric combinations you will ever see in your life. And on that note, I will take a quick bite of my Greek yogurt, strawberry, blueberry, honey, and chia seed parfait. Shout out to Lucy. I love you very much. Thank you for making that for me. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop B5. And we have a Berlin invitation. I wanted to swallow before I continued. Castles, knight e4. Phrasing could have been a little bit better. Rook e1, knight d6. And we have what's known as the Rio. This is the Rio Berlin. And normally this is just agreed to a draw. The players just play some moves and they make a quick draw. Because pawn structure is symmetrical and, you know, you attack the rook and the rook goes back and then you trade rooks and then, you know, like here actually queen e8 is a move, I think, or maybe not because queen d1, bishop f4. See, I don't play this stuff. No, I think this is completely fine. Queen d1 and bishop f4 and like you play like b6 or something. Whatever. If some super GM decides to watch my recap, they can correct my... Nobody cares about this theory anyway. I mean, no beginner wants to play this. So we have a totally symmetrical position, and what normally happens is you trade all your pieces. Now in this game, there actually were no piece trades for a while. Anish centralized down the e-file, which is very nice. Now, of course, the knight on g7 prepares rook e8 at any moment. So you're ready with rook e8, you're obviously not going to sacrifice your queen, you're going to trade rooks. But Anish gets a nice, you know, knight on c5, pressuring b7. He ends up playing b4, which takes space, a4, a5. Now, in a position of total symmetry, the activity of your pieces and the space that you control on your opponent's side of the board will dictate whether or not you have advantage. And here, well, Anish clearly controls both of those things. He has much more space in his opponent's territory. Think about it. Anish has 2 squares, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, controlled on his side of the board. Okay, I suppose you can count those as well. Meanwhile, he controls the entire file, he controls some pawn squares, his knight controls 4, his bishop, I mean, let's not count, his queen and his rook are double, this bishop, he has more space, and he's just happy. A5, let's maintain with A3. There actually is something pretty cool here. If takes, you can, it almost looks like you can play like queen E8, you can set that up like this, and now you're threatening queen E8, queen sacrifice for checkmate, but instead Anish chooses this, takes, H5. H5 is a standard move, so your king doesn't get back ranked. And here, Wesley decided to play rook to e8, which finally, oh, not rook d8, rook e8. And he had to do this because Anish is actually threatening to go g4. Anish in a lot of these positions will prepare g4 to win space against these pieces. So, rook e8. Now, of course, Anish moved his queen away, because obviously he's not going to sacrifice the queen for... What? Remember how I told you that the most beautiful geometric combination would arise here? Well, I wasn't lying. Wesley missed it too. Otherwise, he wouldn't have played rook e8. Takes, here. And, oh, you could try to find it. I'll pause. I'll take a sip. Video sponsored by G Fuel, by the way. Just re-signed for that with them for a year. You're going to be seeing them a little bit more often. Bishop b8. And the queen has no escape. Isn't that nasty? Bishop to b8. Like, what a move. What a nasty move. And it's over. Knight a4 is a threat. Just can't stop it. Bishop takes d4, cd4. Plays g5. If he played queen b4, then the bishop comes back and mates the king. And you're going to see that anyway. g5. Bishop e5 and rook g8. And rook back to b8. And the queen is still trapped. The queen is still trapped. Queen b4, rook b7. Like, the game can proceed, but white just wins every pawn. And white has a complete fortress. It's incredible. Like, the only weakness white has is the bishop here, and it's completely covered. And this pawn guards everything and is guarded. So white has no weaknesses. It's just the completely lost position for black. And Wesley So decided to resign. Unbelievable. Normally, we don't get such... I mean, this wasn't really excitement. This was kind of a blunder, but it's just such a ridiculous... I mean, bishop b8 is just so nasty that you have to show it. I don't really like to show games that have one nice move out of 30, but that was just so... That was so picturesque that I had to put it on the board. Plus, we cheer for Anish here, you know. So, I don't know, maybe some of you hate Anish. Also, we like seeing Wesley games. So, game number 4. This is the only repeat, like I said. We're going to have Adhiban Bhaskaran because he's involved in exciting games a lot. His nickname is The Beast, so... he couldn't get the nickname The Black Beast because Derek Lewis would have copyright struck him or sued him. Derek Lewis, the MMA fighter. So he's just The Beast. We have a King's Indian defense, folks. You know, the patented. There's a lot of ways to play the King's Indian. Personally, I'm a fan of Bishop E2, Bishop E3. H3, Bishop E3. I've played the Gligorich system, named after Svetozar Gligorich, I believe it's his name. Also, 4-pawn attack is, whew. I mean, people at my level really know the theory, but this can really blow people off the board. Knight F3, we have a main line. This is a main line. E5, castles, Knight C6, D5, Knight E7, all mainline stuff, and now white either decides where to move the knight or plays B4 immediately. The modern main line is B4. This is known as the bayonet attack. I'm not exactly sure why it's known as the bayonet attack. I'm not a chess historian. I'm kind of a... I have, like, the chess... I have the historical chess knowledge of, like, a pair of sneakers, to be honest. But basically, you know, you go full bayonet, you try to attack them here, black tries to go here, play F5. Nowadays, the King's Indian with good computer preparation is just a very solid advantage for white, but in rapid chess, it's very legitimate. A5, takes, A4. And white is going to use this rook as a target and then continue to advance. And in many of these lines, you want to trade the knight for the bishop. Why? This bishop is the far... You ever seen Charlie's Angels? It's like in James Bond, you know, you got M who's telling you everything from the control tower. That's the bishop, all right? It's not on site, but it's telling you everywhere you gotta go. Or Q in the modern James Bond. Rook A8. Man, my analogies have been all over the place this video. Rook A3. Now, Rook A3 is a fascinating move because actually, you actually want to go this way. And you might not be fully successful, but when these knights move, you can have your rook join the attack on the king, or your rook can just be protected, and then you can double up on the A-file and march through. It's a very, very flexible move, very creative move. Rook E1, like you would think that these moves have nothing to do with each other, and well, just watch. Super GMs are playing, yeah? The kids in the sandbox. Now, what is black doing? What is all this? Well, black is trying to set up F5. If you play the King's Indian defense with black and you do not successfully play the move F5, you haven't really lived, yeah? So... Finally, the move F5 is on the board, and actually, we very much have a tense fight. Very, very much have a tense fight. Pawn takes, and of course, black takes with the G-pawn. It makes absolutely no sense to do this. Just like you need connected pawns in that other game, you need connected pawns in this game because they inherently get stronger. Okay? Bishop G5, Bishop F6 again, and now Knight B5. Basically, what Vidit wants is Vidit wants to trade pieces. Vidit would like a position like this, where black has lost the bishop and a queen for the attack, and is allowing white's knights to just absolutely beat him up. Now, Adhiban Bhaskaran did not show up to the Goldmoney Asia Rapid to, you know, lose his games, so he does not oblige to what Mr. Vidit wants. This knight rotates around to A6 to maintain a monitoring of this A-pawn and the C7 pawn. Knight H2, Knight E7, and F4. This is a very important move in a lot of King's Indian positions, except in this position, it's absolutely terrible. You, in many cases, need to play F4, and sometimes you kind of hope this happens, because now there is no attack. You have completely shut everything down, and if you get something like pawn takes F4, you can again trade pieces. The more you poke holes in black's position, the less of an attack that black has. But Knight G6, he's keeping the tension. And if you take, folks, what are we going to take back with? What have you learned? Pawns need to stay together. The more the pawns can stay together, the better. Bishop H6. Yo, how many times has my man Vidit moved this bishop around? Rook G8. In fact, even this move kind of doesn't make a whole lot of... Like, it makes a little bit of sense because you don't want to get hit with F4, but you've just opened the rook directly onto your king. Vidit, what are you doing, buddy? Okay, king h1, gotta get out of the way. Now here comes that defensive knight, it's coming in. G4, okay. G4 was the smartest move Vidit could have played this game. Because, folks, when you are in a position where you are under a momentum shift, and it's clearly going in the wrong direction, you're about to lose the A-pawn, you're about to get attacked by all your opponent's pieces in the vintage King's Indian style, there are two ways to play a lost position. Defend tenaciously, create chaos. G4 creates chaos. Now the best move for black is F4, after which white can play knight F3, allowing E4, and then actually sacrifice a piece. So apparently you can do this and come in with C7. Now, I don't actually think that this is what Vidit had planned, but this is a line where he gives away he gives away a piece for 2 pawns. His F6 bishop is hanging, knight C7 is coming, or he doesn't have to sack a piece at all, and he can play like A5 and not lose that pawn and then kind of take care of these pawns later. Now, after G4, Adhiban Bhaskaran plays this move, still a very good move, Rook F1, and Bhaskaran plays Rook takes A4. Okay, so Rook takes A4, Rook takes A4, that looks like a free Rook, but it's not, because now Knight G3, and he takes this. So you got a bishop and a pawn for a Rook, and his attack is still raging strong. He just needs to crack this open at the right moment. Queen E3, the knight jumps back to F4, and now the king hides on H1. We have C6. Now here, Bhaskaran could have played this move. And if you take, Queen D5 is check, and you pick up the knight. And that is very nice. I'm assuming they both had low time. Instead, he played this move. C6 takes is the idea. And knight back to C3, bishop to G5. But he must have misevaluated this exchange, because the same theory holds true as it did 10 moves ago. Yes, the position is utter chaos, but at the end of the day, the attacking side in the King's Indian defense cannot afford to trade pieces at the wrong moment, and after Rook A7 with Knight E2, you are going to start trading too many pieces. And at this point, as the momentum shifts back to white, oftentimes the King's Indian player cannot deal with the shift. Now, I'm saying Adhiban Bhaskaran is an incredible chess player. I'm just saying that generally speaking, especially under low time constraint and the extra pressure, when you've been attacking for a while, it can be very difficult to flip the switch and go, okay, time to defend the position. I don't know also why you turned British, but FG4, and that just blunders in one move to knight takes F4. And now whatever you take with, if you take with the queen, you lose your queen. If you take with the pawn or the knight, I will check you on this diagonal, and it's game over. And exactly that happens, and after check, check, that's it. The rook has to block, and the silent killer, rook E1. You are paralyzed. You cannot move your queen or your king, you cannot move your knight, so you cannot move any of these pieces, and your bishop certainly won't do the trick. It'll delay for about a move, and now it's game over. How quickly things change. G4 was a brilliant move. The computer will sit here and go, minus 2.6! What does that mean? What does that mean? Does a human sit there and think that? No, the computer goes, oh, G4, and all it takes is one bad move, and we're done. And that takes me to our final game of the evening. Day? Morning? Afternoon? I don't know. So, Gukesh versus Aronian. Now, this was a wild game, folks. This was a really wild game. Here we go. This was a Rogozin defense. Gukesh, by the way, one of the youngest grandmasters of all time. I believe he got it at just 13 years old. Maybe 12 and like 12 and like 10 months or something. But definitely like top 10 youngest grandmasters of all time. Now, in these variations with Queen A4 and Knight C6, normally white plays Bishop D2, white plays E3. But actually, Gukesh takes us out of theory very quickly by losing a pawn. I have never seen this in my life. I've never seen this in my life. And basically, he allows the knight to wander in. And I think Levon took because he wanted to call the kid's bluff, whereas, like, I actually don't think this is the best move at all. I would not be shocked if the best move here for black is to play G5 to make this bishop leave. In many variations of the Rogozin, Knight E4 combined with G5, defended by the queen and the knight, is very common. And black just plays a super obscure thing like this. But I'm sure Levon was like, meh. Me have extra pawn, me gonna win game. Now, Gukesh uncorks the prep. H4. Now we're talking. Go, Gukesh, go. No respect for the super GM. This is exactly how we like it. Support for knight G5 in the future in case the king ever castles short. H5, H6 always on the cards. Rook H3, Rook G3, Rook G7. I don't know. We'll see. Knight D6, C5. So clearly one guy has an initiative here and one guy is trying to defend. B5. Now, Gukesh, to his credit, is a child prodigy, but he's not a member of Anarchy Chess, because if he was, he would without hesitation en passant this pawn, and then the game would go on. He would take back the knight, you know, because you can't go here, you would lose your knight, so. But Gukesh, fine, child prodigy status, plays a4. Now we have b4, and he decides to win the pawn back like this, and castle long. The problem with doing this is you have now given Aronian a protected pass pawn for nothing. That pawn is just very strong. And after bishop a6, only one guy has a very powerful bishop, and it's not the guy named Gukesh. It's the other guy, his opponent, Liren Aronian. The bishop on a6 is amazing. It's an incredible piece. Who will ever oppose it? However, because white has castled long and black has castled short, this is going to be a super wild game. White is going to either try to crack through the middle, or white is going to start an attack over there. Let's see what happens. G4, etc. H5. H6. Now H6 could be a very dangerous move after something like G4. The problem is G4, remember that bishop? Oops. And by the way, I'm not taking your rook. I'm going to take that knight for free and continue to fork you. All right, a continuous fork, that's good. You take a knight, you keep forking the rooks. Life is good. So you're not going to go G4. So E4. Now, bishop e2 doesn't fork anything anymore. Queen e7. And you see that, well, I mean, Gukesh is doing everything that I said. He's playing on d5, he's playing on h5, he's playing on both flanks. And Aronian has not started this attack. This is like the 2nd Avenue subway in New York City. They promised it to us for 100 years. This is an unfinished but projected construction project. But if it ever breaks through, then probably black will just win the game. So, e5 closes the center, very good. Bishop g3, knight back to d8. And now king b2. That is a fantastic move, anticipating the movement on this side of the board. Knight rotates to b7, rook guards on c1. Right? You anticipated that that was going to happen, so now you will guard your pawns. I actually love white's position here. If you can just press the pause button on a chess game, I would say white wins because white's position is beautiful. Everything is great. The problem is in chess that even though there is no judge, you can't pause. It's not like fighting. You can't just win every round by a little bit. You actually got to win the damn game. Now, if Gukesh plays rook g1, rook h1 for the rest of the game, I don't know. I actually don't really know if black can do anything. Gukesh doesn't do that. He actually plays for something, and even though he gets a nice and stable position, rook c8 comes, bishop f2, rook f7, and it's very clear that Aronian is very slowly going to put some pressure. So Gukesh plays rook g4, rook d7, rook d1, and bishop comes into e2. Now, at this point, if Gukesh had played this move, I guarantee, in the words of Charles Barkley, that Aronian would have repeated. But Gukesh sat there and went, I'm one of the best damn young grandmasters on the planet. I don't think he said it like that. But he was like, why would I take a draw in this position? I mean, I think I have chances to play for a win with the move d6. And he's not wrong. But d6 allows Aronian immediately to play for something. And oftentimes, when you need to play the game for a win, you will inherently imbalance the position in a way that will benefit you, but also give your opponent some hope. And hope can be everything in a game. Now, in this position, Gukesh should have played this to prevent that. And if black takes, then you go e5, knight f3. Actually, in any order, e5. This is an incredible computer idea, and basically, you pounce on black before black can get settled. And once you sacrifice those two pawns, you give a check to win control of the diagonal and go here. And it looks like black is just on the verge of hanging on, but because you gave this check, you now go here. Black is the furthest thing from hanging on here. It's plus like 3. So Gukesh was right there, but he waited. He waited, and he never made that breakthrough, and now Aronian has hope, and hope is the most dangerous thing to give to a man who has been suffering. But still, knight takes a5, you win a pawn, but Gukesh chose not to do this because maybe rook a7. You can get the demons into your own head. You're like, I don't want that pawn. I'm gonna continue to improve. I have no risk. Look, I'm not gonna risk anything. I'm just gonna play. I'm gonna play. But you need to muster up the courage because if you wait too long, the other guy has beaten many players in his life. And here comes b3. This is, by the way, how I play against GMs. So, some nerves there. And now he finally plays f4, and he plays it at the wrong moment because now the other guy has created an impenetrable defensive setup and counterplay on his own. All it took was for Liren to make one pawn push. Instant replay. We back up. This pawn is on b4. Black has nothing. But once black created a blockade on the light squares and Gukesh just wasn't sharp enough at the critical moments, the move b3 comes. And a little bit later, just you get frustrated with yourself. You're like, damn, I should have done this earlier. And you do it, it's wrong. And the second that you do it, he picks off one of your pawns. And then a few moves later, well, he's going to pick off some more of your pawns. He's going to pick off this one, and also he's now got passed pawns of his own. Like, there is some back rank threats here. We have king g8, rook f3, g4. You can't take on b3. Rook f8. I immediately start punishing every one of your inaccuracies. h5. Rook f5. I'm coming. All the pawns. Give me all of them. The second you move your king out of the way, b2's coming. Now I'm threatening a queen at any moment. So you gotta go here. Rook e5. Now I'm up 2 pawns. And here come my pawns. And I am not going to hesitate. I am Levon. I have beaten many people in my career. I don't have those same nerves that you do, young one. And now I've won the knight, and you make one more push maybe, but check. Very, very timely. By the way, it doesn't look like it can be stopped, but check. And we have king b1, rook d2, because if you had gone this way, I would have given you this check. And then I would have taken your rook, and then I would have queened. So, and the game ends right here. This very nice final move, bishop e6, because had you taken my pawn, you would have gotten mated. Bishop e6, and if you take, mate. Levon wins with the move bishop to e6. 69 move game, and a very nice game from Levon Aronian. So, folks, that takes me to my standings. A very long and fun recap. Ding Liren, Magnus Carlsen, Vladislav Artemyev from Russia, and by the way, that is your field. A lot of Russians, Wesley So, Giri Duda from Poland, Eri Gaisi, Gukesh, Adhiban, the players from India, as well as Vidit. We have Salem Saleh, whose games I will try to feature tomorrow. Hoi Fan, the highest rated woman in the world. I mean, it's Judith Polgar, but she's retired from chess. I will try to feature as many games as possible. And yeah, it was a very long recap, so I appreciate you all for watching this long. You're all amazing. You're all incredible. Get involved in the comments. Peace out. I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, actually, before I go, this recap was called A Poisonous Apple because after beating Alireza, because after Alireza Firouzja defeated Magnus Carlsen, he went half out of 4, and he has 1.5 points. That is why it's called A Poisonous Apple, in case you were wondering. Goodbye.